Chapter 9, Part 3 of The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. This Librvox recording is in the public domain. The Nightland. Chapter 9 The Dark Pyramid, Part 3. And now truly was I something fresh and ready, and I ate and drank, and had my gear once more upon me, and so down into the gorge. And afterward I went upon my journey for 18 hours, and did pause but a little while at the 6th and the 12th hours that I should eat and drink. And when the 18th hour was nigh come, I perceived that the nature of the gorge was grown very horrid and dank. And in verity I did feel as that afar upward in the night the black mountains that did make the sides of the gorge had come together, and did make a monstrous roof unseen in the utter height. And this I do tell only as of my belief, for I have no very sure proof. Yet truly my reason doth say likewise, for there did oft drip water upon me out of the darkness, even though I walked in the middle way of the gorge. And how should this thing be, save that there went an overreaching of the sides, that should let the mildew down upon me? And in this place, and for more than 11 great hours, there were fire-holes and fire-pits only in this part and in that, and each a great way off from another. And they burned very dull, and did seem to throw a fume of sulphur into all the air, as that there was no freedom above for the stink to pass away. And in every place were the rocks of the gorge very thick and slippery with strange growths, so that it was a sorrow to walk upon them. And all that time was there an heavy wetness and slowness in the air, and a smell beside the stink of the fire-pits, as that I did go forward through a place where dead things did be. And for a great time there was a horrid darkness, as it had been that the air was grown thick with the fumings of the fire-pits, as I do believe. And beside this thing there was, as I have said, but a dull fire here and another there, so that it was like that there should be a heavy dark. And because that it was so utter black, and because that there were growths upon the rocks in the bottom of the gorge, I did go but slowly, and with pain of stumblings, and always with the stink of that place to trouble me half unto a sickness. And sudden, as I did go past one of the fire-pits, I saw that the fire made a dull shining upon some monstrous thing that did move before me, upon the far side of the fire. And I came in one moment unto a swift silence, and hid among the rocks of the bottom of the gorge. And I looked very cautious at the thing that moved beyond the fire, and surely I had seen no thing so monstrous since that I had come free of the Nightland. For it was as that some huge creature, like to the hull of a great ship, did move down out of the dark of the upper way of the gorge. And it went by the fire-hole and onward into the dark of the lower way of the gorge, and I had perceived somewhat of it as it did go past the fire, and surely it was black and beslimed, and utter great in height and in length. And it went always without noise, so that I had not known it to be there, but that I saw it plain with mine eyes. And truly, if I do say that it was somewhat as that I had seen a monstrous slug thing, surely I should use wise and proper words to make known to you this horrid brute. And I stayed very quiet a time, and afterward I went upward again of the gorge, and did use a new caution to my way, and saw that the discos was free upon my hip. For even thus I did carry the weapon, being that I must use both hands to my way, and to save me in my stumblings and slidings over the slippery rocks. And once it did seem to me that some great thing moved in the darkness, and I went downward among the rocks, and stirred not my body for a great while. And sure am I that there went some living monster past me, that did stink as a loathsome grave. And afterward I went on again. And 3 hours did I go thus, and came at last to a place where a fire-hole did shine more ruddy, and I did look well about me, that I should perceive that part of the gorge the better. And as I stood there, very quiet, away off from the fire, so that it did show no great light upon my person, I did note how utter still was that place, and this to take me anew, as though it had come fresh upon me. And here there would be the drip of water, and again in that place, and again elsewhere, and all very solemn and very dismal, and the silence to be constant. And presently, as I looked, now to this way and again to that, I saw that there was a monstrous slug thing laid upward against the black side of the gorge, as that it had stood up on end. And the one end of the monster went upward beyond the light from the fire-pit, but the other part did come down and trail into the gorge, as a long hillock, very ugly and black and beslimed. And I near sweat with a disgust and horror of the thing. But afterward I had more courage, and spied well upon the brute. And surely it moved not at all, any more than the side of the cliff of the gorge, and I conceived that it stood not upward upon any feet, but clung to the rock, even as you shall see a slug to go. And for a very great space I was very quiet and moved not, neither did I make to hide, but stood there very stupid. Yet in a time I had more of courage which brought strength unto my heart, and I began again to go upon my way, but with an utter caution, and I then to creep for a weary time upon my hands and knees among the dank and weariful rocks and boulders that lay in the bottom of the gorge. And thrice between 4 hours was I passed by hidden and monstrous things in the horrid dark places of the gorge, yet with no noise, save, as it might be, the odd rattle of a rock in this place and that, but with an utter and dreadful stinking. And I to be very quiet as they went, as you shall think. And each time now that I did go by the fire-pits and fire-holes that lay odd ways in the gorge, I did pause and search about me with mine eyes very cautious, and oft now did I perceive how that the monstrous slug creatures did lie in this place and in that against the cliffs of the gorge. And I did go then utter still, from this space to that space among the rocks, and oft upon the flat of my belly, and with a constant heed that I make not mine armour to knock against the boulders. And always as I did go, there was a monstrous stench, and the choking of sulphurous smoke very oft. And here and there, as mine heart doth believe, there were utter great caverns within the mountains to the right and to the left, and of this thing I have some small proof. For once I did go by a place where a fire did burn, as it should be a fire-hole, afar inward of the mountain-side upon my right. So that I saw in a moment that I looked in the darkness through the mouth of a mighty cave-place, and I went past very quick and silent, for I knew not whether any horrid thing should come forth out of that place to slay me. And truly, as I did think, if there did be one such place, there were like to be many, and mayhaps the slugs came forth from these caverns, where, as I did conceive, there was naught save an eternal dripping of waters and the foul growth of things in all parts. Yet is this last but a thought, as I do say, and you shall wisely take it for no more than that. Now I came clear of the darkness and the slime and the stinking in about 12 hours after the time that I did think the mountains to be a roof unto the gorge, and the air was now free, and did seem as that some life and health did abound in it, and the fires did be more plentiful, and burn very bright and clean, and threw all their fumings upward, so that there was no more any bitter pain of sulphur within my throat. And surely it was with a thankful heart that I went onward, and with a good speed. For there was much of light all about me, in that there burned 100 fire-pits here and in that place, so that I saw clear before me and behind, and conceived that the slugs did abide only in the closed part of the gorge. And oft I did take the air very full into my lungs, for the sweetness of it, after the horrid stenchings that I had abode all those hours. And presently, when I was come free of the roofed part of the gorge, maybe some 3 good hours, I looked for a place proper to slumber, for it was surely something over 33 hours since that I did last come upon sleep, and I was utter worn and lost of strength, with so much of creeping and harking for monsters, as you shall believe, Moreover, about that time I had gone bitter long whiles between slumberings through more than 100 hours, as you shall perceive from my tellings. Now presently I saw a small cave that went inward of the side of the gorge, and I looked into the cave and found it to be sweet and clean and very dry, and there was a small fire-pit off from the mouth of the cave that did throw a good light for my purpose, so that I saw there was no creeping thing or horror in the place, and I went in and made to prepare for my slumber. But truly, when I was come to look upon myself, I was utter soiled, and did seem as that I stank with the slime and disgust of the dark part of the gorge, where I had gone upon my hands and upon my belly, and because of this I was set that I should not eat or come to sleep without I washed me. And I went out from the cave, and there was a spring near to the fire-pit, as was oft in that part of the gorge. And the spring was hot, and did fill a hollow of the rock, very quiet and with a fuming of sulphur, as I did bend above it. And I washed mine hands and face and mine armour and gear in the hot spring, and did dry me with my pocket-cloth, and so was sweetened and put to happiness of mind. And I went back into the cave, and did sit in the mouth of the cave with the discourse to mine hand, and I eat 4 of the tablets, for I was gone a mortal long while without, and afterward I drank some of the water. And as I did eat and drink, I looked out upon the lightness of the gorge before me, and with a cheerful and composed heart. And I saw presently that there came certain creatures out from their holes, even as it might be that they were part rats, but very strange-looking, and not properly such, and some did lie about the fire-hole, and some did hunt about in the rocks. And one came presently, and had a snake by the neck, and it stood upon the snake, and did eat it, even while that the snake did lash about upon the rock. And the snake did lash until that it was nigh all eat, and a very strange thing this was to see, and something troublesome to the pity, yet was I glad to perceive that there were enemies to the serpents of that place. And when the rat creature did make an end of the snake, it made across to the spring, and did drink the hot water a while, and afterward back unto the fire, and there lay down anigh to the edge, and seeming very sweetly comforted of the belly, which in truth was much otherwise with me. And after that I saw many creatures that went about the fire, and did have warmth from the fire, and drink from the spring. And surely I did ponder that the peoples of this our age should say, if they had stood with me, that Providence had made nigh together the warmth and the drink that were needful unto life, for it was grown to a bitter chill now in the gorge. But rather did this thing seem to me otherwise, that these creatures did be but of their circumstance, and if that had been another way, then had they grown of their wits to meet it to their means of life. Yet, as some would say, the arguments do but meet and be the same thing. And neither way do I care in this place, but do more than to show unto you the working of my brain, in this way and that as I made my journey. Now presently, when I was done eating, and come very ready to fall upon sleep, I went out from the cave and gat me certain boulders, the which I did carry into the cave. And when I was come back for the last time, I put them very secure in the entrance-way, that no small stinging creature come at me as I slept. And after that I made ready and went to my sleep, having sweet thoughts and slumbers of the maid. Now I slept very quiet that time, and was not over-troubled with the chill of the gorge, which was but little in that place, both by reason of the fire-pit, and because that the cave did help to keep my warmth to me. And I had a deep slumber for 8 hours, and waked then pretty tired, but strong to go upon my way. And after that I had sat a little while, I came full to wakefulness, and afterward did eat 2 of the tablets, and drink some of the water, the which I did sitting in the mouth part of the cave, after that I had cast free the boulders. And afterward I gat my gear upon me, and I went again upon my journey, and the gorge did continue very light and cheerful, with the shining of the fires. And oft there did be a little steam that did hiss from this part or that of the bottom of the gorge, and did blow very quaint and noisy in the quiet of that place. And oft there did be hot pools, and everywhere the great boulders in the bottom way, and to the right and to the left the black and mighty sides of the gorge that did go upward for ever into the everlasting night. And so I did go, and had eat and drunk at the 6th hour, and gone onward again. And lo, at the 8th hour I did thrill sudden with a wondrous great thrilling. For in verity it did seem to me that the master word did beat softly about me out of all the night of the world, and all my heart did throb with great glowings of joy, yet was the beat of the word unsure, so that I knew not truly whether my spirit had indeed heard aught, for there was immediately a silence as ever about mine inward being. Yet, as you shall believe, there was a new hope and strength of courage in all my body and soul. And I went forward very swift, and all renewed, as it were, and my strength and hope did make naught of any terror that should lie to bar my way, neither did I have further heed of the boulders that lay always upon my path, but did go over them with quick leapings, and a wondrous and thrilling eagerness of the heart within me. And sudden, in the end of the 10th hour, I perceived that the mighty walls of blackness that made the sides of the gorge did be no more there, and that I was come truly upon the end of the gorge. And I near trembled with hope and astonishment, for when I was gone a little way on I had ceased to go upward any more, and was come clear out from the mouth of the gorge, and did peer forth across a mighty country of night. And it did seem to me that I was come to a second land of strange matters, even as the night land where did lie the wonder of the mighty pyramid. And surely I did think within my heart that I was come at last to that far and hidden place of the world where did be the Lesser Redoubt. But yet was there no place in all that night where did tower the shining lights of the Lesser Pyramid, the which I did hope vainly to perceive. And because that I saw them not, a great heaviness came upon my spirits for a time, but afterward the heaviness did go, for I put reason to help my courage, and did plan this cause and that to show why that I was not come to sight of the shining embrasures of the Lesser Redoubt, but yet was there left an ache of doubting, as you shall well conceive. Now this land was very new and strange, and had a great light in this part, and a wondrous grim darkness in that, and I did pause a great while to determine how that I should go properly. And presently I bethought me of the compass, and did draw it forth and set it upon the earth, that I should see how it did act. And truly it did go almost as Nanni had told me, so that I was very sure in all my being that I was in verity come anigh to the hidden refuge. But yet did the compass give me no proper guiding to my way, so that I was no more wise to this end than before, only that I had the comfort of that which it did seem to assure. And in a little while I went forward into the land, and did hope that I should come presently to some matter to help my choice. And I went first toward a certain great glowing of fire that lay before me, and did seem joined to another great glare that went afar to my left. And I found the ground of that land to be very fair for my feet, and to have in this place and that certain bushes, even as it did seem to me of the kind that we named moss bushes in the Nightland, as you do know. And I made a very good speed, and went thus until I had gone for maybe 6 long hours. And by that time I was come anigh to the glowing of light, and did keep now a strong caution to my going, for truly, as I did know from the tellings of the maid, there were very horrid and dreadful powers in that land, and I did well to remember that I was come again to parts where might be the destruction of the spirit. Now I made a pause, and looked toward the glowing light, and it seemed to me that for a monstrous way unto the right and unto the left there did be surely a great hid valley in the earth before me. For the shining did seem as that it came up from out of a valley, as that there burned a deep light in such a place. But yet was I all unsure, and had no proper knowing whether indeed there did be any valley there, but only a strange and luminous shining that did come upward from the earth. And I made no great haste now to go unto that place, but went down sudden into the bushes, and lay upon my belly, and had a new great fear upon my spirit. And presently I parted the bushes a little and made a place for spying. And I looked a great time into the place of light, and now to this part, and now to that. And sudden I saw, as it did seem, a monstrous head within the glowing, for the glowing did seem at whiles as that it swept to and fore, as though a shining smoke that went obedient to a quiet wind, and so to hide and again to uncover. And in a moment I lost the great face, and was all unsure that ever I had seen aught. And lo, in a little minute I did see it again, but whether it did be the shape of some utter monster of eternity, even as the watchers about the mighty pyramid, or whether it did be no more than a carven mountain of rock, shaped unto the dire picturing of a monster, I did have no knowing. But I made that I should get hence very quick, and I did turn me about in the bushes, and went upon my hands and knees, and so came at last a great way off. Now presently I came again upon my feet, and did take a new look around that land. And I had the mouth of the gorge to my back, and this I perceived by the shining of the fire-pits that made the place shown to me. And to the left of the gorge was an utter blackness, as I did conceive of black and monstrous mountains, through which the gorge did come. And to the right side of the gorge there were many low volcanoes, that went always along the feet of the great mountains that made the right wall of the gorge. And I saw the feet of these dark mountains, because that the light from the little volcanoes made a glare upon the lower slopes. And so shall you have some knowing of that part of this second land of night. And a good way off was the shining that I had journeyed unto, and the shining went into a distant light through a part of the land that lay afar to my left, for it stretched a great and strange way toward me, out of the leftward gloom, and came unto my front, and so away into an utter distance. Yet, though it was so great, you shall not think that it made any huge light in the land, but was rather as that it had a shining made unto other ends, for it made not a great lightness in the land. And you do now perceive something roughly how the land did seem to my back part and unto my left, and somewhat before my face. And because that I did think to have no profit to my search if that I went to the left, I made attention unto the right. And here there was much of darkness, yet oft the shining of fire-holes in this place and that amid the darkness. And as I did look, it grew very plain upon me how great was the spread and drear wideness of that country of night, and how that I did be an utter lonesome person in all that dark. And so shall you be with me in sympathy of the utter greatness of my task, and know of the fear that did breed, odd whiles, that I should search until I die, and never find, and you to give me good human understanding. Now I made no more to delay, but went unto the right, and did keep the chain of the little volcanoes something level to my course, though a great way off. And I went thus with a strange growing of hope and an excitement for 10 hours, and it eat not then for more than 20 hours, and surely not since the 6th hour of that day, and this because that I was so utter shaken from my calmness of going. And at the 10th hour I went utter weak, and did seem surely as that I must swoon. And lo, I bethought me how that I was gone so long without aught for my belly. And surely when I was quiet a time I eat 4 of the tablets, and in a good while did feel all renewed, and would rest no more, after that I had drunk some of the water, but went onward. For in verity my spirit did be as that it had slain me if that I had lain down at that time, and this because hope was so fierce in me, for I to feel indeed that I was come near to the maid. And I went 10 hours more, until that I did truly totter upon my feet, with utter and dreadful weariness, for I had gone now through some ways of 40 great hours, and had been foolish in mine eating and drinking, as you have perceived. But yet was this to be forgiven, for I was as that I should come any little minute upon the wonder of the Lesser Pyramid, shining afar in the night. Yet truly there was nowhere anything that might be likened unto it. and I lay down there just as I did be, and with no proper heed to my safety. And I was gone asleep in one moment, as it did seem, and waked not for 12 hours, and then did come suddenly unto knowledge, and thankful was I in the heart that no monster had come upon me in that dead time of slumbering. And I eat 4 of the tablets, as was surely due unto me, and drank some of the water, and so gat forward again into the night. And truly I was mortal stiff, and did ache for a great while, and this did be in part because that I had wrapped not the cloak about me ere I slept, for the land was bitter cold, and did make the blood very chill. Now when I had gone onward through 6 hours, I ate and drank, for I did mind now to be wise and keep my strength good within me. And I went onward again at a very great speed, and full of an excitement, and surely I did be glad at last that the tablets were so easy gone in the mouth and unfilling to the belly, for I had been without power and patience to eat proper victual. And at the 10th hour I saw that there rose a red shining out of the land before me, as that it came upward from a mighty pit. And I made slow my way, and so, when I was gone on for 2 great hours more, I saw that monstrous figures went about against the red glare of the shining. And I got me down into the bushes, which were very plentiful in that part. And I stayed there for a certain while, and made a watch upon the red shining and the figures, and truly it did seem to me that there were horrid giants in that land, even as in the night land. And afterward I crept away, and went outward from the little volcanoes into that part of the land that was dark, save, as you do mind, for the glare of fire-holes in this part and that. And I went now with an utter care, for the giants had put a new caution into my heart, and I did surely mean that I should live to rescue mine own maid, and have joy through all my life. And thereafter I went with the discos in my hand, and at each hour that was the 6th, I eat 2 of the tablets, and drank some of the water, and so did keep my strength very good within me. Now presently I was come to a place where the land did go downward a great slope, and there was a difference in the earth that went beneath my feet, and no great plenty of the bushes, but only one in this place and one in that, and nowhere any fire-hole. And I gat me down and did feel the earth with my hands, and lo, I did find presently smooth stones, and afterward olden shells, and immediately a great delight took me, for Nani had told how that the lesser pyramid stood something nigh to the shore of an ancient sea, that was long dried up in the years of eternity. And surely it might be that I was come down into the dry bottom of that same olden sea, and should presently have sight of the little pyramid. And because that hope was put so fresh into me, I went forward through, maybe 30 hours, across the olden seabed. But in all that time I had no sight of the lights of the Lesser Redoubt, and a great trouble began to take me, for indeed Nani had not told me how great was the sea, and it might be that I should wander a weariful age across it, before that I come to the far side. And it did come to me presently how that I should be wise to see that my way was very straight, so that I waste not my strength in useless wanderings. And I had a great care now to observe that the red shining did be always upon my right to my rear. And by this reasonable cunning did I make to steer very nicely through the great gloom of that place. Now as I did go across the bed of the great sea, I heard strange sounds, now in this part of the darkness, and now in that, and oft did there be a noise, as if things did run this way and that way in the bed of the sea. And once, afar off in the night, there did be a strange and horrid screaming, so that I did know truly that the monsters of that land were out and did go about in the dark. And as you shall perceive and understand, I was all unknowing of the lore of that land, so that I knew not what to think of this strange sound or that, neither knew I what they might portend, but only that, as I did say, there were monsters abroad. And I could do no more than have my way forward with an utter care always, and be very ready with the discos, or to hide, each as may be according to the need. And surely I went 41 hours that day, and eat and drank after every 6th hour, and before this, in the 37th hour, I heard a great roaring and bellowing in the night, coming nigh unto me, and afterward the thudding of monstrous feet, as that a giant ran past me in the darkness, and did make a chase of some creature. And the thudding of the feet and the roaring went far off into the night, and there did seem presently to come back to me from a great way a little screaming, but of this thing I had no surety, and I abode very hushed in a clump of bush until quietness was come again all about, for there had been an utter frightening sound in the horrid voice and in the thudding of the great feet. Now in the 41st hour of that day I came upon the farther shore of the olden sea, but lo, there was nowhere any light to tell me aught of the lesser refuge, and truly a great doubt and bewilderment took me, for indeed I could not perceive how it might be that I saw not the lights of the embrasures of the lesser pyramid, and a great despair took me, so that I sat down there upon the shore of the olden sea and had no heed of anything for a while. But afterward I ate and drunk and went into a clump of bush and wrapped the cloak about me, and so went fast unto sleep, with the discos handy to my breast. And in verity the pain of the despair and the bewilderment of mine heart did make rather for sleep than to keep me wakeful, for indeed I was half stunned of the brain and of my courage, and did seem now the farther off from the ending of my search than ever I had been. And I slept 6 hours, and waked then sudden, and I leaned up upon mine elbow in the bush, and harked very quiet, perchance some noise had shaken my sleep from me. But indeed there was nothing, only that I was wakeful, and did mind me of my trouble of failure. Yet now I did invent this thing and that thing to make natural account that I was not come to the Lesser Redoubt, and so had hope again within me, yet much also of doubt and bewilderment. And I eat 2 of the tablets and drank some of the water, and again to my journey, and I made that I should keep along the shore of the sea, the which I did through 12 hours, and was then still so much in doubt as ever. And I ceased from my journeying, and looked about me over the land. And lo, I did note how that a weak and strange shining was in the air of the land at a great way, as it had been that a far spreaded and faint glowing made a little glare into all the night unto my left and before me. Now I ate and drank, and made to steady my spirit, for I did fear lest I should feel utter lost in all the night of the world, and to know not where to make any more my search, and so to grow desperate in despair. And this thing you will understand. And afterward I did make across that land unto the place where it did seem that the dull shining was something bright. And I went thus through 18 hours, and did make pause at each 6th hour, and ate and drank very resolute, though in verity it did seem as that even so small a matter as the tablets did be like to choke me. And by this it is plain to me how great an anguish was come upon my spirit, lest that I was all astray, and should have no joy to succor mine own. And thrice in the time that I did go there did be a running of feet amid the darkness, and odd whiles strange and horrid cryings in the night, so that I put a force upon my despair and hid me, for indeed I had no right to lose care of my life if there did be any chance yet that I find the maid. And lo, in the 18th hour, which was truly the 30th of that day, I found the shining in the night to be grown very plain, and an utter stinking of sulphur, and truly I did be aware that the land went upward. And I made upward through 7 hours, and the light did grow more plain, and was full of a dull redness, very sombre and heavy. And in the end of 6 more hours I ceased to go upward, and did know of a strange low sound, that did be like to no other sound that ever I did hear, and was like to a dull roar that did never have ceased through eternity. And I went forward unto the light, and the land to be now as that I went over an upland plain. And I did go thus through 5 hours, and the low roar did grow ever upon mine ears. And truly, even as I did shape my thoughts to take a caution for my body, I went upward again a little, and came out upon the edge of a mighty cliff, and the low and constant roar did moan upward against me with an everlasting muttering. And I looked downward a monstrous way, and surely there was spread out a mighty sea, as it did seem, of dull fire, as that a red-hot mud did lap very deep and quiet below me in all that night. And I looked outward across the strange sea, and the far side was hid from me, for surely there were dull and solemn clouds that came off the sea and hid the distance from me, and the clouds to glow a little redly, and so to rise, and presently to blacken into the night. And I looked to the right and to the left, and it was plain that the black cliffs did stretch out both ways, and did go downward ever into that monstrous sea of slow fire. And there were great headlands that went out into the fire as into a sea, and the fire did lap very quiet about these, and where the fire lapped about them there did shine and spurt out green flames and vapours at divers times. And indeed, as I did perceive, I was come to an upward sea of fire, as it were the deep inwards of a low and utter monstrous volcano, that was flat of the top and utter big across. And in verity I did look downward into the fires of the inward earth, and a very wondrous sight was it, to stand there alone upon the cliffs of that everlasting sea. And a great heat came upward from the dull and grim fire of that gloomy sea, and a reek of sulphur, so that I was like to be choked, and did go backward from the edge of the cliff. And surely I was come to the end of that dark land upon that side, and had nowhere perceived the lesser pyramid in all the night of my travel. And a new despair came upon me, for indeed it seemed I was come all astray in the night of the world, and did nowise have any knowing whether I stood near to the country of the Lesser Redoubt, or whether that I was gone half across the world unto a strange place. And then, as the despair troubled my spirit and dulled the beating of my heart, a sudden thought did light up a fresh hope within me. For indeed, as you do know, I was come upward of a great height, and did surely have a huge view over all that land, and mayhaps the lesser pyramid did lie somewhere in a valley, if in verity it did be anywheres at all in that country. And I turned me from the cliffs and looked backward over all the night of the land, but there was nowhere in all that country the shining of the lights of the lesser pyramid. And lo, of a sudden I did know that there was something in the night, and I stared with a very keen and anxious look. And behold, there was the black shape of a great pyramid afar off in the night, that did show against the shining of the distant light, for it did stand between me and the far-off fires. But until I was come to that place whence I did look, I had not stood to have it plain against the shining upon the other side of that land. And how I did feel in that moment, I have no words to set out unto you, but surely was my heart gracious with thankfulness, and I ready to leap with joy and hope, and all my body thrilled with an excitement that would not have me to be silent, so that suddenly I began to shout foolishly across the night. But I came soon to wisdom and silence, as you shall think. End of Chapter 9, Part 3.